And that's when I met you. And I remember introducing myself to you, and you said your name was Carla Mandrake. And I said, "Oh, Mandrake, like the magician?" Well, that was my grandfather. Oh God. You see, that's New York. You meet people who are, have famous families who are doing wonderful things, and I'm very impressed with your work. You
Yeah.
should have been doing original programming over at BBC. This stuff is beautiful, and your narration and your pacing and your editing and your shooting and the sentiment. Listening to that crosstalk you had with the man in Macau was wonderful about magic and the magician's perspective. Um, and the fact that you built by hand the first copies of your original books, that's lovely. That's so romantic, Carla. It really is. It's beautiful. And I'm not surprised that, someone with your genes coming
Mhm.
from someone like Mandrake the magician, uh, that's a gift that you carry. And it's obvious in your work. I've been watching your other interviews with other people, the painter and the writer, and I've been watching your documentaries, your the body moving, the snapshot in time, the unity and love, all that wonderful scenes.
Yeah.
You have a lovely voice. Your
Aw.
narration,
Mm.
it's just so endearing, and your editing is the pacing is flawless. It really just jumped out of the screen.
Wow.
And I've always loved your books. Gloria and I, found them and purchased them. And uh, you're very talented, and we love you very much.
Aw, you're gonna make me cry.
Oh,
Wow, thank you. Really, thank you. And thank you to Gloria.
you're one of those. You're one of those giants that I've met here and you only have encounters like this in my experience in New York. I remember bragging to some guy, "Oh, I spent a day with Andy Warhol." And he said, "Oh, really? I knew Andy." It just goes on and on and on.
And I learned from watching people like you who are, seasoned producer, writer.
By tomorrow, this will all seem like a bad dream.
What if there were no tomorrow?
Here's to stolen moments.
The way that you story tell.
I've got a witch mad at me and you might get into trouble.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
Only bad witches are ugly.
What do you think you're doing?
I keep forgetting I'm not in Kansas. Aren't you forgetting the ruby slippers?
The slippers.
Put 'em up. Put 'em up. How long can it stay fresh in that can?
You're able to put together these beautiful little works of art.
Thank you.
I was just extremely grateful. When you were at BBC, you did a news segment.
Yeah, I was the manager of news promotion, and that was great working for the BBC News. Man, I was on the phone every day, call it to BBC in London. They're all talking about the rundown for the day with the people in DC because that's where the show was broadcast, and it was very exciting. I was on the team. I was in the huddle, and very proud of that. And I thought I knew it all, when I came up here, but I quickly learned that it's not enough to know. It's not enough to be good, is you got to be fast. Um, and that was the hardest thing.
The BBC is on the ground with the very latest on the strongest earthquake ever to hit that Pacific nation.
I've worked for some other big brands like CNBC and Al Jazeera and I Madison Square Garden, which was wonderful. I worked for another genius there, whom you met. The the pace was such a change for me, and I just knew I couldn't keep up with you crazy New Yorkers. But here I am now, still in the game, Carla. Still in the game.
You are amazing, a powerhouse.
Don't get me started on Ted Turner, but he was a genius in so many ways. We had unlimited budgets, Carla. The greatest 6 years of my career. He didn't care how much we spent on making our shows. All he cared about was excellence. And people will say, how do you run a company like that? Well, he built an international media empire. And when he was finally pushed out, uh, the company just turned into any other company. When he was in charge, every month he'd come up with his credit card. They'd find him asleep outside of CNN, with a hangover. He'd walk around with his credit card. I feel like having a party. And all of a sudden, all these tables would show up. It would be catered. And whenever we were premiering some movie, Ted Turner would bring in these people in costumes.